there's going to be problems. It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
But with the little projects, so say you've got other kind of side projects like the apps and little SaaS business Twilert, which was what it can do is turn into some rather nice passive income.
Yeah.
Because you put it into like maintenance mode, and then boom, you're just taking in income. Hopefully, it should be, well, there's no point doing it if it wasn't profitable. And that income can last for ages.
We're going to be talking about side projects and what a side project is for us, at least, and whether side projects are something that magically become the big thing for people, or whether there's something else going on. So I suppose to kick off with, the other thing to say is that the lights, we're in a kind of surreal kind of room where the lights have a mind of their own.
Yeah, that's just for our YouTube viewing audience.
Yes.
Otherwise,
it's just going to be...
The microphone should work just fine.
Yeah,
occasionally it will go dark for the people viewing online. When you watch a podcast on YouTube, right? I do that quite a lot. So I get it. It's a great distribution channel. But actually, I don't watch it. I just put it on, put my earphones in, and go onto other tabs or whatever. Like I don't sit there and just watch two heads bobbing at a microphone for like half an hour or whatever.
That's true, yeah.
So even if the lights go off, will anyone even notice? It's
we could just get naked. No one would know.
That wouldn't help the ratings.
Anyway, back to side projects.
If a tree falls in the forest, no one's there. Did it even make a sound? Anywho,
so
side projects,
we think they're great, obviously, because we've done quite a few of them when we ran our agency before, and actually ScreenCloud arguably was a side project. It depends what your definition of side project is as well. But by side project, I mean not your main day-to-day thing at that time in terms of what generates the revenue for your company. So I guess, I don't know when we did our first one, probably about 2009, so maybe 4 or 5 years into our evolution, we did a JV which was an online estate agency thing, which at the time I guess was a side project for everyone involved, including the person we did a JV with. But ultimately, it went on to do its own thing and had its own management team. And there are plenty of examples of side projects that have worked really well for other companies. I mean, the famous one obviously is Glitch. That was a computer game.
You're talking about into Slack?
Yeah, and they had a kind of internal sort of communication system which they thought, well, Glitch is kind of going down the pan and we're not really making any money and we're going to run out of money. Should we just kind of work on this internal communication tool? And then Slack was born. But I think obviously you hear stories like that and then it becomes quite romanticized, this idea of a side project. And I think when we, certainly I did anyway, I'm not sure if I can talk for Mark on this one, but I imagined as we were producing these projects, I mean, it was great for lots of reasons in as much as we learnt a lot about what worked and what didn't work. We were able to validate our ideas. But I also imagined that we would have a future as a product company and that the sort of portfolio of products that we had would grow and maybe one or two of them would really take off and we would be able to probably stop being a consultancy at that point, which isn't quite what happened.
Well, it sort of is. I mean, I think there's so many different definitions. Firstly, like side projects, if you're an individual. So let's say you're an individual, you have you're employed, right? You have a job. You want to start your own thing and you sort of start a project on the side, which is something you're interested in professionally. It's not like a hobby.
Yeah.
So first up, I think side project does not mean hobby. We've talked about hobbies before, and I think we'll stay on point. That a side project is, in my definition, is something that you want to be commercially viable, and maybe even one day want it to be something that's more than the side project on the whole.
Yeah.
Unless it's literally just a hobby, basically. And then obviously there's the other context, which is, are you already a company and you're doing it as a side project within a company, or are you doing it from this like personal thing? Because I think that's quite different. So in our case, we were our own company. We had some profit in the business and we wanted to invest that, and we thought it would be really interesting to invest that in product. And we started doing that actually quite early, around 2007. And we built this series of different things. Some of them didn't go anywhere at all. Some of them did all right. And then one of them became ScreenCloud. The way I look at what we did is it's almost a little bit like an angel fund. Right, so you're an investor. You've got like angel funds can start off quite reasonably small. Like it's like 15 million or 20 million sort of dollars or something. You're going to put a load of different bets, smallish bets, a few $100,000 here and there, into a whole series of different, very early stage businesses. And then you're going to hope that out of that, say 20, 30 cohort, there's like one massive win, which returns the whole fund 10x, and then maybe 10 do okay. And I think we were a bit like that, although I don't think at any point we were as strategic as that. I think we were just doing things that we thought were fun and interesting and that would work, and then we were just sort of applying them out.
I think also there was a bit of hope that one of these things would just kind of almost naturally blow up.
Yeah, that was another error, wasn't it?
And I remember at one point thinking, well, I don't know, let's say at its height, maybe the different products we had and different apps, I'm just guessing here, let's say at its height was doing about $50,000 a month US, maybe.
Yeah, 50, 60, something like
that. And it was probably costing us about $150,000 a month to exist with the staff that we had.
That's including agency.
Yeah, so that's everybody that we had working on the agency and sort of doing some of the products as well. So I remember thinking, well, all we've got to do is just repeat this twice, and then we're laughing, kind of thing. Which
I remember thinking
kind of I sort of naive in many ways. Firstly, not everything is equal. You can't just kind of just go, well, this worked, let's just do it again. And secondly, in the terms of what ScreenCloud's become, the ambition was never just to cover our costs and just kind of sit back and go, hey, great, we don't have any clients anymore.
But it's a really safe place to start because you're bootstrapping it, you're learning, you're going through a whole load of different learning experiences, trying out different things, trying different markets. I think, to be honest, if I was starting a ScreenCloud again, I think unless I really had a very clear vision of like exactly the problem I wanted to solve and et cetera, I think this is a really good way to start. It's maybe funding it is relatively tough. That's maybe one thing. But if you are a company, it's probably more possible to try 4 or 5 different things out and see kind of what sticks. Because, like really nailing it in terms of, and we obviously haven't quite done it, but by comparison, ScreenCloud is our home run so far. It is our home run because nothing else ever came close to it. Right?
Yeah.
But it's not just the idea; it's the timing. It's the point in the market. It's maybe a couple of other things happening. Like, really, there's some. We were surfing a wave of different trends, but one of them was things like Amazon Fire TV and Google Chromecast basically making TV screens come back into people's minds more as like something you might want to control digitally. So, they did a lot of the groundwork for us by kind of educating the market about that, but also. It's just like you kind of coming to the end of the incumbent wave that was there. There was just a lot of really nice kind of timing around all of this. And again, had we started it, sometimes I think, I wish we'd started this a few years earlier. Look, think what we'd be now. But actually, that's as stupid as anything else. It's like, well, actually, that might have been too early for us for the way that we wanted to do it.
Yeah. And
maybe 2 years later, we would have been too late because other people would have done it, and then you're in the flooded thing. So... Oh God, I'm rambling away there. But I think what I'm trying to get is like, it's not a bad thing to be doing these different things because often entrepreneurs overcommit to an idea way too early just because they don't really have any other idea or they have to.
Yeah.
And then you're left with this thing which you're committed to for quite a long time, especially if you've taken money.
Yeah. Yeah. Or the other thing is they fall in love with it as well. So there were quite a few. I'm just thinking one of the projects we did, Dash, which was, in looking back, it was a disaster on many levels, but it actually probably was a great learning experience for us in terms of. We spent we put all of our kind of we put a lot of money into it, our own money into it, and a lot of expectation, and we didn't validate it with customers beforehand. We literally just built this whole thing. Said, right, here we go.
It was really complicated.
Really complicated. Took a long time to do. Kind of caused a little bit of internal resentment because of the length it was. So I think it just meant that next time round, or the other times when we did it, we were kind of a lot more
very, very lean at the beginning.
Yeah, and looking for signals as well. Looking early for signals like, does this actually resonate with customers? When you speak to customers, do they go, that's quite cool?
And that's actually a really good point, because something that's kind of recently come up internally here is, we have a maturing product, right? On the whole, like platform-wise, players-wise, we have thousands and thousands of customers, many thousands of screens. So there's certain parts of our system that we can't fuck about with basically too much. We have to be very cautious and very process oriented in how we make changes and things like that to them, because it can, and recently we did have a problem. It can cause major damage, and our customers are trusting us with their screens and stuff. But that doesn't mean to say that every single thing inside of ScreenCloud has to be treated with those kid gloves, right? Just certain elements which are critical. Now, we are in the process of relaunching platform, and we're also introducing a lot of new concepts into that and around the side of that. We're also doing a little bit more bespoke work for our biggest customers, right, through this professional services team. Now, I won't go into it because we're under NDA, but there was a kind of a reasonably large quick serve restaurant chain that we're working with closely, and we had an idea about how we could, after speaking with their team extensively, working with them for the best part of a year, where we could massively reduce the time that they spent sort of producing and pushing out menu boards just by being smarter and relying on technology more. But it wasn't proven. And in fact, the customer originally was a bit like, this sounds too good to be true a little bit, about it, and was a bit kind of, well, we trust you, but kind of don't, what you're saying just sounds, we can't imagine it. So what I said to the team was, okay, in a very, very short period of time, i.e. a day, and I thought a day was too long, right? Their eyes went, what? I said, I want to build a prototype, that gets the key point of why this technology will be done over to the customer. So it by nowhere, it's not even remotely close to being good enough product. It's not even a product.
Yeah.
But it gets that concept down and that core heart of the concept across. And I don't want us to do any code. I want us to use platforms which are already out there. So in this case, we used Airtable, and quite imaginatively, and a bit of Zapier as well. And there was a little bit of code needed to make it work fully on a screen, but very, very little. And it was just to get this idea across to the customer of just what we could do and how we could save them time. Then we made a video of it, and we even handed it over so they could have a play with it too. And the team that I asked about validating a lot of these ideas, they had originally said to me, I said, look, it has to be the least amount of time possible. They said 2 developers, 4 days. And I was like, This customer I'm not even sure if they're even going to go for this at all. So I was like, no way we're spending 4 devs, 2 devs, 4 days, eight working days. Yeah. No, plus management, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. And because I know how we do, because of these side projects we did, because these tiny little proof of concept hustles, which we used to do, I realized this isn't baked into most people. This is not something that's normal for them. And then I basically said, look, guys, I'm going to show you two. And I worked with one person, 4 hours. In fairness, he did a really good job kind of thinking around some problems. And we nailed it in 4 hours, one afternoon. And then the client absolutely loved it. And then we're moving forward. And now we're building it out into a proper product. But now the client's chasing us because they want to go forward faster. Whereas before they were quite skeptical. Sorry, there's a long thing. But that came out of our being so having to, one, use our own money, and also realize because we've been burned by our own idiocy, really, for building something for ages and then finding out no one really wanted it or it was too hard. And that's amazing. Those skills, I'm now realizing that we've recruited lots of people who haven't had that experience, and I'm actually going to have to train them in how to do that stuff so quickly because it's just not normal. It's not natural.
Yeah, I mean, when we were at the agency, we were talking about this not so long ago. We did a few hack days with the BBC, and it was very much like sort of lean methodology of prototyping.
Super lean.
But well, the great thing about it is that it was really, really good fun as well.
It's great fun.
It's so much more fun just going, okay, we've got to come up with we've got to do this really, really quickly, and it's got to be effective, but we haven't got all day to do it. And it's amazing how people respond.
And every single one we did, they pushed forward to make it into full product.
Yeah.
Right. And it was just getting that, and again, self-educating into how to make the most out of very minimal resources and very minimal time, but with maximum impact.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what those side projects, they taught us that, because often we also had to juggle it with agency projects. Like often it was like weekends and evenings, or just when you could grab a bit of resource here or there, or that designer's free for like half a day. What can you do? Ooh, okay, I've got half a day. What can I squeeze out of that? I think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And then there's a big but, right?
Yeah. And then there's that chasm between, okay, so again, going back to my fantasy world or fantasy imagination of how this would all come, that these things would start to build momentum and get to a certain level and then keep growing. We could then dump all our clients, and then everybody could focus on this portfolio of products that we had. But what we found is with all of the products that we had, other than ScreenCloud, is they kind of reached a natural plateau because we weren't really committed to them. We weren't committed either in terms of our own time, our own focus, but also the amount of money that we were prepared to kind of spend on it. Because I guess partly because we were self-funding it, and partly because we just didn't, we didn't have oodles and oodles of money. We certainly didn't have investment until we went.
And that very much affected our decision-making process. Got a really good example of this. I hope she doesn't mind me talking about her business. I won't name it, but as a friend of mine has, she's bootstrapped this amazing company. I mean, absolutely amazing. She bootstrapped it after she's worked a long time in industry, but it wasn't really her passion, and she had a redundancy come up. She got a good amount because she'd been there 20 years or something, and she loves cats, right? And she loves animals, but cats specifically. And she's kind of like into the hybrid, not the mongrels that I had, basically, like the ones you pay lots of money for. And she's French, and her philosophy was like, we give these cats like crap food, this processed stuff, and she was like, I want to give them really good, amazing, high quality organic food, and I believe other people do. And she trained herself to become basically a butcher, and she, in her shed in her garden, she built like a little mini place where she could process all this stuff and keep it, and then she built her own delivery system out of it. And you know what, she's bootstrapped this thing up from say like 30 grand or whatever seed capital, maybe 50, she put some more in. This thing's doing really well. This thing is the number one for organic pet food in the UK for cats. Wow. It's all on subscription, so it's kind of like HelloFresh or whatever for cats, basically. And she's got different recipes, and she's super strong on process. And I look at this business and I just love talking to her about it and what she's doing. Now she's invested in a small factory and she's doing it. And she is investing things, but you know what she's not investing things at all is advertising spend. Because she once did 500 quid on Google Ads, didn't get any customers, and it basically says, oh, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, we know, that business clearly, without proper online, you can target the customer so easily. She doesn't do social media. She doesn't do content. She's just awesome operator, and hats off. But I know, and I do say it to her, that your business is, it's going to keep growing because you have a phenomenal product, and the word of mouth is really good. And it's a community, right? The cat, especially that kind of higher end. But it's painful to watch. And then when she says things like, oh, Google Ads doesn't work, Mark, it might work for you, but not for me. I'm like, you're a subscription business with a highly targeted market of people who are super interested. Yeah,
they're probably searching.
And you're an expert in nutrition for animals. Like, that's what you've got expertise in. There's so much content you could do, and there's so much you could back that up with. But because you tried 500 quid and because it's your own money, and we know that if you're going to, everyone would rather, if it was your own cash, of course you want to spend it on better equipment for the factory, on better delivery, on on hiring that extra person to help you, and like that's where you want to put the money. But then that horrible, oh my God, I could spend 10 grand on Google Ads and get nothing.
Yeah.
It's so scary, and that's where it's your own cash is bad. And when you've raised investment and things like that, it's not that you don't care because it's someone else's money, but that money has been given to you to prove out a hypothesis, and that hypothesis is it must scale, which for me totally changes the mindset from side project to real business. Because now, if you don't spend it trying to do that, at least if you do it stupidly, that would also be very annoying, and investors would be really unhappy. But it forces us to think differently about the business rather than, it's on my own cash.
Yeah.
So look good, because you can put so much down the toilet of the Google AdWord thing. It's not the be all and end all, but that business would thrive if it did that right. But she can't get out of that mindset because she's not taking any external money. And she's like, well, I've got to do this. I've got to buy that new fridge for that. And I'm like,
It's terrible to hear. I could go faster, but I can't because I haven't got enough cash. That's like almost like
you could raise money like that.
Yeah,
I mean, this thing's almost profitable.
Yeah,
and actually, it is profitable, but it's that whole.
Maybe we should invest. Cogent.
I've totally said to her,
yeah.
But also for me, I'm like, but only if you don't want to, don't do it.
It's good.
And
but I suppose the other thing from a company's point of view as well, if they go, we've got a product, we think it's great, we need to go and raise money. One of the immediate problems you're going to have, or the immediate questions you're going to have from investors is, well, but are you committed to this? Because as far as I can see, this is just your little side project. Then you have this kind of, it sort of almost forces you, I think, and I think we'd already internally committed to the fact that we didn't want to be a consultancy anymore.
Yeah.
But what we hadn't done is let go of the kind of the money tree, if you like. Not that it was a money tree particularly.
We had a hand on two branches, right?
Because otherwise we had no way of earning an income. So it was kind of like, and actually that was the first round of investors were kind of a little bit more relaxed. But when we did our second round, I think I had to sign something to say that if we hadn't sold the agency,
in a horrifically short time frame.
Yeah, within a not very long. Yeah, I think a few months after raising the funding, we would close it down, and that was slightly. It was good because it focused the mind. Fortunately, we were quite a way down the line in terms of having conversations with people around acquiring the agency. So actually, in the end, it was all fine. But it's it's definitely a key thing. So there is a point, I think, in any side project, unless you're forced into it. I mean, with the Slack example, I'm guessing, like this is all they had. It was it. They couldn't do glitch.
It was
like
the
this or
phoenix
nothing.
from the flames, really.
It's like.
So I remember because a few people said to us during those early days, like the big problem with you guys is you're not focused, right? You've got all these different things going on, and no one's going to really want to invest in you because what if you just get bored and do something else? They want you all in. Yeah. Now at that very early stage, I found that I really hated it when people said that, and not because it wasn't true, it's just because it didn't show any respect for like the history of what we've done. Like, that'll be nothing. That agency will be worth nothing once ScreenCloud takes off. But it's like, yeah, but it hasn't taken off yet. And by the way, I spent 15 years building that up, and actually I do care about the staff and the customers that we have. And I don't want them to just vanish one night. Like, that's ridiculous. That's not. Where's the integrity in that? So I always used to think, God, you arsehole. Like, what, you just think you can just flip your life around like that because some investor leans back and goes, you know what you should do. So although the advice was right, I thought the delivery of it was really arrogant and showed no respect for anyone, really, frankly, apart from probably their own ego. And so I wouldn't want anyone thinking this, like, well, what you must do is there's a day where you just draw a line in the sand, shut everyone down, and then piss off a load of people off. But I think what you have to also appreciate is that this does come at you sort of slightly faster than you think, especially when you've got that traction. So it is worth, in the back of your mind, having a plan for how you would alleviate or make this not a side project or whatever it might be. Yeah. Because, there is a point where actually it does get a bit ridiculous that you've got these other things going on. But, it's about kind of using your judgment. But it can come at you pretty quickly, probably faster than you think.
I think almost before that as well, there is a point where you have to accept that if you really want this thing to be the thing that you want it to be, your future or whatever, that if it's going to be the main course rather than the side dish,
keep the main thing the main thing.
Yeah, keep there's a mental point where you have to kind of say, okay, this is really happening. I am going to move from where we are now to this thing, and that actually means letting go of some stuff, which is actually. even if you're not letting go of it straight away, just making that decision, okay, we are moving towards this, and this is the plan ultimately, and yes, we'll mitigate it in this way, but we are committing, in our case, the three of us, to not being a consultancy company anymore at some point in the future, and being a product company. And by product company, at the time, I think we were still under the illusion that we could maybe have a portfolio of products, but really, there was a point at which we had to say, we're either all in on this. We either kind of back ScreenCloud, that this is the thing that we want to do, this is the thing that excites us the most, and can say goodbye to everything else that we've got.
There are some good things about that. Okay, probably saying goodbye to the consultancy is the hardest bit, because that's very people-oriented, customers and staff and things like that. And it's hard to have a soft landing where either moving an agency on without the founders or winding it down. There's going to be problems. It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
But with the little projects, so say you've got other kind of side projects like the apps and little SaaS business Twilert, which was what it can do is turn into some rather nice passive income.
Yeah.
Because you put it into like maintenance mode, and then boom, you're just taking in income. Hopefully, it should be. Well, there's no point doing it if it wasn't profitable. And that income can last for ages. And for us, it actually lasted all the way through and still did. And then what I've been doing in the last year, just to kind of clean everything up a bit more, is I've taken it on myself to either close down the very small ones, which were just dwindling down to nothing, which was relatively easy, just kind of contact a few users, give them 3 months notice and shut it down. But for the ones that were still doing all right, basically to sell them, but not to sell them for very much. But that's been kind of fun too. So I've been using flipper.com, which has been pretty good. There's a few other ones out there as well. But I like those guys. And they've got this big market of people who, I guess they're people who don't necessarily want to start a business from complete scratch, want to take something on and grow it. Quite often they're like, owner-operator types. Maybe they've exited from good share options out of a big company, or they're just kind of tired of the freelance grind. And then you can sell your product to them and then watch them take it on. And then you get like $100,000 or $200,000 or something for it. And that's pretty nice, because that doesn't go to any other shareholders. So I'm just saying, there's loads of ways of doing this. In fact, I was wondering, there's almost something about, if you're really good at starting things, but you're not very good at kind of growing them, or get bored easily, there's something in that. You could just, if you're a good developer, designer, or maybe marketer, you can kind of build this little project up, get your first users, get your first traction, get your revenue, and when you get up to something sort of meaningful-ish, like a few grand a month, $5,000 a month, something like that, you can just go on Flipper and sell it, and then go and do another one.
Yeah,
it's actually quite fun, and you could stay in the part which interests you the most. You could even really do quite well just churning out side projects in that way, because the ecosystem's there to sort of support sort of beginning to end now. Not that everyone's going to be a hit, but but actually, to be honest, they're more likely to be hits. The more you do, the more you know the difference between the flunk and something that's going to do okay.
Yeah.
But knowing when you've got a real winner, that's actually almost hardest one to pick out of all of them, because actually it's not that hard to get something out there, find a few customers and make some revenue. That's actually relatively easy if you've got a bit of skill. It's finding something that's going to be big.
Yeah.
That's hard.
And then I guess the other thing then is then committing to it. And it's difficult. This was the first thing that the three of us said, right, we're dropping everything else to do. And actually it turned into a success. And it might not have done. I'm not saying that was the only reason that it was successful, but it definitely helped. And I think it was one of the differences between, there was other differences as well, but one of the differences between why ScreenCloud was a success and the others plateaued a bit.
Was focus, really. I think that is a kind of a classic thing, isn't it? It's like the chicken and the egg, because you could say, oh, it never really took off, but then you never really focused on it. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy to a degree that it'll always stay a side project if you don't
I think
graduate it to be something that isn't. One
of the projects we had, which did quite well, was a Twitter monitoring tool that we kind of just built, started charging for it, and there's kind of more of a history around that, but we didn't really, compared to say ScreenCloud, we didn't really put none of us really focused on it. We didn't really think about how the product, we probably thought about it, but we didn't really invest heavily in development. We didn't do hardly any marketing. and I'm not saying that it would have been successful as ScreenCloud. I've no idea, but you can see why it kind of it plateaued at sort of $30,000
Well, I mean, other
like
look at things like Brandwatch. I mean, Brandwatch is basically social media monitoring. I mean, done properly, and it's made a fortune. I think the problem with that one is none of us were really in love with the idea.
Yeah.
I think that's important. I think you're going to be in this for a while, and you're going to be tested on how much you want to do it quite heavily. Your resolve will be certainly tested, and so I think you really, it has to be the side project that you're kind of the most in love with, not the one you just think, oh, that would make money. There's nothing wrong with that, because I think anyone can be interested in doing it for a while, but not truly interested to dedicate your life to. I think the other one was in the back of our minds. We all knew that if you're really relying on Twitter APIs for your whole business, you are just one flick of the switch. Don't think they'd even bother having a meeting about it at Twitter HQ. I think they'll just literally go, oh, that one seems to be doing a bit too much on the API. Block. Boom.
Suddenly all your customers,
that would be just horrible. And obviously we're to a degree at the mercy of that with what we do at ScreenCloud, but many, many different APIs, many, many different hardware vendors. So it would be painful, but it wouldn't be a kind of death kick.
So I guess in summary then, what we're saying is side projects really, really good. Whether you do it for yourself, whether you do it as part of a company, it's great for learning. It's a great way of validating whether this kind of crazy idea you've got. But if you ever really want to make it, if you ever really want this thing to take off, at some point you're going to have to commit. You're going to have to, piss or get off the pot. You kind of like, you can't have a foot on either side of the bank. I mean, unless you're huge, like Google, obviously the difference between Maps and email and Android, they're quite different, but they have the resources to properly go for it.
I doubt many of our listeners are thinking of it from the perspective of Google.
Exactly. If you're a founder team and you're looking to, you're thinking about these things, there will be a time where you have to say, okay, this kind of this cash cow that we're relying on to pay our mortgages each month, we're going to have to we're going to have to cut it loose.
And so many of these things are funded through consultancy, so that really is the crux of it.
It's scary.
Because you've got the skills, you're doing it for yourself, but the revenue's so much slower, and you could just do a consultancy project, and all of your month is now paid for that one consultancy project. Oh, it's so tempting. It's like crack. Well, actually, I'm not that tempted by crack, just on the record. But
it's like what you imagine crack to be like.
Yes. Yeah. On that bombshell. It's just like crack.
The thought of the day from the Reverend.
I hope you take more away from this podcast than that. But so exciting. Let us know how your hustles are going, side projects and stuff. And if you sometimes, actually, I will say one more thing. Sometimes it's just good to get a bit of this is where, again, investors is good, but it could just be a friend or someone in the industry. It is very hard to see the wood for the trees when you're in it. But sometimes someone outside can just go, like, it's like me with Veronique's business. I just can see it. Like, I'm like, just do this and you will fly. I promise. But when you're in there, it's so hard.
Yeah.
We should probably give. I'll put a link to it. I don't know. Should we, if there's probably cat people listening, it's like honestly, really good product. Check it out. I don't know. I don't know if she's gonna hate me.
Maybe ask her first.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Anyway, it's cool. All right.
Till next time.